And here we are. Welcome to it. It's episode 80 of the Average Joe Sports Show. I am technically idiotic. You know this. So
Wow.
we have not fixed or changed the logo from yesterday's Hail Varsity show. So all that being said, we have Average Joe's Bill Doleman, Gary Sharp, Chris
put my
Schmidt.
hand up over it. I can't put my hand up over it.
We are efforting Elijah Herbel. We'll see if we can't rouse Elijah. Guys, college football playoffs, round one, and there is all sorts of venom on social media. That's interesting. Nebraska able to land a portal quarterback as we got ready for this weekend show. And Justin Rhett, the name to know from a safety standpoint for Nebraska as they get another Bulldog to come to Lincoln. How's everyone doing? Sharpie, what's a good word, man?
It's good. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy Hanukkah. How about that football the last 2 days? How about the blank show on social media? And how about the fighting? And how about, can we say that the committee got it right? Top seeds won. They won at home. I mean, you know, we had blowouts when we had the semifinals, and we had blowouts in the first round. I think what we learned over the last 2 days, and we already kind of knew this, is we've got to adjust the system. You know, it can't be the two teams that lost in their conference championship games that are in the quarterfinals are double-figure favorites. And we're stuck with Ohio State, Oregon, which could be a national championship game. But you know what? I'm not a conference SEC Big Ten guy. I think everybody is individual. And, you know, Ohio State, when they don't play Michigan, that's what Ohio State looks like. They're a juggernaut. And they put a whooping on Tennessee last night. And that was, I think of all the performances on the weekend, that was the most impressive by far, in my opinion.
No, it was all Ohio State. They were ready to go. And guess what, Bill? They went downfield. They used their stars and athletes and played in space and played vertical. And they weren't worried about trying to be the tougher team on the field. They just did what they're good at.
Howard looked like what an NIL, high-priced NIL quarterback is supposed to look like, and Smith looked like what a high-priced five-star recruit is supposed to look like, and that roster looked like it was worth probably, well, I guess relatively speaking, $20 million. And Tennessee and the SEC found out. Now, that may have been the most impressive game Ohio State's played all season long, and I know they dismantled Indiana, but they look like a team that was playing for its coach. Ryan Day looked relieved for the first time. I think he actually smiled for the first time in, 4 years, or the last time they beat Michigan. So good on them. And I think they did send a message that, you know, whatever happened against Michigan is fuel to the fire. I hate a cliche, but for the rest of the college football playoff. As for the rest of the college football playoff, that was not a good show, but what that proved to me yesterday and on Friday is that people are willing to watch bad football games, so they will expand to 16 so that one can play 16, two can play 15, and we'll just march on because people will watch 40-point blowouts if you just call it the college football playoff. So that thing's going to expand. They have got to, though, do away with this giving a ribbon to conference championship teams. Boise State got a bye. I know that's a quality football team, but if anything what happened to Indiana ought to be a message to everybody. Look, it's got to be seeded. The best team's number one, the 16 team or the 12, as the case is now, the 12 team, and it's just 1 through 12. Because you have Arizona State and Boise State waiting with byes to play winners of teams from yesterday. It makes zero sense whatsoever. So let's just next year, 1 to 12, 1 to 16, you play and you march, you have a national champion. And as is the case really every year, there's only 4 teams probably capable of winning a national championship. The rest of it is all just money making.
Yeah, I mean, controversy sells. We watched. We got angry at the format and who was playing, but we watched the games. I think maybe you can make a case this year for 7 that could legitimately win a national title, but you're right. Most years it's just 4, and sometimes it's only 2 if you look at the past system. You know, I think they'll change next year to seeding it.
Not reseed.
Yeah, because there's that. I mean, look at the matchups in the quarterfinals. Again, we got Ohio State, Oregon is a quarterfinal matchup. Georgia, Notre Dame is a quarterfinal matchup. I mean, those are two really good games, but yet Penn State is playing Boise State. I think another takeaway from this weekend is, man, it pays to have home field advantage. Whether you're in the north or whatever, having home field advantage in that game is huge. And we saw that because SMU didn't adjust very well to the environment. Indiana, I don't think, adjusted very well to the environment. Tennessee, even though they had all of their passionate, Bucky's fans that were there, they didn't adjust. It pays to have a home game. So now I'm looking at the 4 teams that are going to play in the quarterfinals that had a bye. I mean, they've been off for a while. So now you've got teams coming in that have basically, they're going to be on their normal schedule of playing football games, and they're going to be playing at a neutral site. So you take away the advantage of being a 1 through 4. Mm-hmm. I don't know if we get to the point because the Bulls still have a say, but why can't we have home field advantage in the first 2 rounds? So if I play all season long to get that number 1 seed, I don't get a game in Autzen. Where how would you like to have to go into Autzen and play in mid-December or late December?
It's better than going to Happy Valley, freezing. It's better than going to Columbus, but the reseeding, I mean, if we would have done this right from a seeding standpoint, is Clemson Notre Dame a closer game than what you had? Is SMU Tennessee a closer game? Is Arizona State Ohio State close? Probably not. What about Boise and Indiana? Probably a close ball game. So I want to see the reseeding really truly happen. And make this. I'm pretty greedy, quite frankly, and give me really compelling playoff games versus just being happy with the fact there is more football and there are playoff games.
I think they need to seed the field of 12 or 16 or wherever we're going, like the NCAA basketball tournament, not like the NFL.
Right.
And then that would alleviate a lot of the issues that we're going to encounter over the next 2, at least this tournament. But I do worry, man, if you're like Ohio State, there's Ohio State only lost by a point at Eugene. Now it's on a neutral site at the Rose Bowl. But God, wouldn't you like to be Ohio State more than Oregon? Oregon's been off since the first Saturday in December. Ohio State just played, and it's not like they have another week off. They are essentially next week, they're playing again. So they're kind of on a normal schedule. And I wonder, with that being the case, like a Penn State against a Boise State, or a Texas against an Arizona State, are we in for a couple of more blowouts in the next round as well?
And if I'm Oregon too, and it goes back to the Autzen comment, I played my entire season to get the number 1 seed, and I don't get a home game, and I've got to go on the road to play Ohio State, who has played, following up what you just said, on a neutral site at a bowl game. I mean, are they going to have the wing eating contest at the bowl game like they always do, and everybody's going to go to the parade and all of the bowl pageantry that was the reward for the end of the season? Why are they calling it a bowl game anyway? This is just the next round of the playoffs. But if I'm Oregon, I have been seeded detrimentally because they're going to have to play a team that's already played and not have the opportunity for having a home field advantage for my fans who would have packed the place, right? So there's money left on the table right there. That's why you're going to go to 16. Is the money at home left on the table, the television viewing audience money left on the table, but Oregon doesn't get a home game as the number 1 seed, and Ohio State did and gets a chance to. I hope Ohio State wins. I don't have a rooting interest, but just for the fact that this will cause more chaos and consternation and conversation about the playoff and the seeding, and I feel sorry for Oregon, and I shouldn't, and I hope Ohio State pummels them because they're not getting a game at home, because I think this has been so poorly constructed.
Hey, good on Oregon, and this is Dan Lanning, who's got some dog in him. They haven't said one word about the scheduling. Not one word has come out of Eugene complaining that, oh no, we're gonna have to play Ohio State again. Good on Oregon, because they could make a case and the rest of the country would go, damn right. And Lanning is like, you know what? We're gonna go play that game. We got to play 3 games anyhow to win a national title.
No, I like what Oregon is. I like their versatility. It's too bad that one of your your conference teams that is Final Four worthy, or you might have a national championship that might be your national title game is Oregon, Ohio State.
Yep.
And you're getting it way early. What do you guys think of Texas? I thought Clemson hung in and fought well, but I thought Texas, I mean, they when they decided to just run the football, that O-line played well. The run game was good. They didn't ask the quarterback to do too much, and they were able to build a pretty big-time lead because of the run game.
I thought Clemson showed, I want to say program history. Like I think that's a program that understands what it's like to play in the playoff, even though none of the players that are on that team are in it. But Dabo Swinney had his team prepared to play and play well against Texas on the road, as opposed to Indiana and Kurt Signetti. I think that there was a wonderment to them that they were in the game. They didn't play like they were prepared for that stage, but Clemson played like it was prepared for the stage. They just got beat by a better team, but they were at least competitive, I thought, at least in the first half. And Texas looked really good and wore them down and won.
Yeah, the thing about Texas, like, they've always had all of this skill talent, and they've had good defensive backs. But I think where Texas gets scary, and this is, part of me, guys, didn't you watch the 4 games this weekend with an eye on what Nebraska does not have that they have?
A little bit.
Or what's the difference between those 8 that we're playing this weekend, that the teams that are outside of the playoff realm are thinking, man, if we can get better here. I look at Texas, and this is the same about Nebraska. Texas has gone a long stretch without having All-American offensive linemen. When Mac Brown was rolling, they were producing All-Americans, and they were getting guys drafted off the offensive line. What's happened at Nebraska? Too much inconsistency on the offensive line, and there's not All-Americans. There's not NFL draft picks. And once Texas was able to do that with Sark and the way they recruited, they were able to run the ball at will yesterday. That's demoralizing for Clemson to get in a 3rd and short situation. And the next thing you know, the Texas running back is out the back door and he's going 77 for a score. So them having the ability with what they already can do in recruiting to add offensive line play, I think makes Texas really, really scary now and down the road, because then you factor in they have an elite defense.
Secondary is really good. They can get after the quarterback. There was a stretch where it didn't look like Clemson was going to be able to throw the football because it was 1-2 and then time to cover and duck because the edge play was good or the interior rush was pretty good. Guys were a week removed from, or a little less than a week away is a better way to put it, from Nebraska's bowl game. The 2 deep released from Nebraska. The game notes are out. A lot of youth, Sharpie, with Nebraska, as some of the young pups that are pushing and pushing will get a chance to see some time on the field, presumably against BC.
Yeah, it's I'm excited to see some of these young guys. They've moved a couple of guys around just because of numbers situation, but there's some names that showed up in the depth chart yesterday, and I think what they released yesterday is probably the closest to the real current depth chart that we've seen from Nebraska since game number 1. So all of those new names you see on there, like a Caleb Benning being a backup, I think is real. It's how many of them will play, because you still got, Nash and Ty want to play every single snap. But especially on defense, the time is now. There's those guys have to play just because of availability in front of them. But I don't know. That was quite. I poured over the depth chart more than I have in a long time yesterday, because I'm also thinking, all right, they're adding some guys. They probably have 3.5 guys they've already added that are going to be starters next year or at the top of a rotation. And then you throw in some young guys. That defensive 11 for next year, they'll be faster, but they're going to be awful young. They will be really, really young, and they knew that. You just hope the young guys have gotten enough seasoning this year and maybe get to play in a game, in a bowl game, where it'll be big boy pull up your pants football, where there'll be, you can't just play Big 12 fast break on basketball on grass. That we'll get a scene of what it'll be like going into spring with those young bucks that are going to be in that second level and that third level.
See, and I was going to say we started spring ball already. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Is spring ball already started? It's getting a good look at all the young guys that they brought in the last couple of years. And the first recruiting class, of course, is just get as many people in here as you possibly can and hope you didn't make any mistakes. The second one is a little more strategic and fine-tuned as to who you brought in. And you've got the NIL and the transfer portal, all that stuff. And then going into March and April, you're going to have a pretty good idea who's going to be around in 2025. But this is the audition time for spring. And people have been kind of down on what Nebraska's brought in and hasn't brought in when it comes to the transfer portal and missing out and being outbid by Oregon or Georgia Tech or whomever. Look, there's another transfer portal window that's going to happen in the spring ball. But to me, Nebraska's already at spring season, and they just happen to be playing Boston College and not themselves. And I know Matt Rule said we're going there to win the game, and yeah, I'm sure that's the case, but they are taking a look at everybody that they have in the program right now, and it's take inventory time, and the spring has already begun.
Let's talk inventory for a moment. And I think you have had several questions at Matt Rule with the media openings about the running back room. That inventory says what? What do you take? What do you pursue? We know Nebraska and Dana want offensive linemen, right? They're going to keep portal shopping for the O-line. You never say no to somebody, but is the running back room something that they can work with? They feel like it. Nebraska is feeling good about where they're at with their top target in the wide receiver room. As they were able to get the kid out of Cal, which is nice. They're still trying to get Key locked in from Kentucky, but Hunter was a big time get. So it's really, my inventory says, all right, we are low on offensive line, secondary. Bill and Sharpie, Justin Rhett is a guy that Nebraska went in on and got. Safety that played at Georgia. And kind of got over-recruited, or they recruited over him, 6'1", 205, but he's got 3 years. Fantastic athlete.
Just don't be a Tyreek Johnson, man.
No, I know. Elijah Herbel is with us. What's up, dude? Good to have you.
Now put me back in my regular spot. Okay, now we got the logo up there. All right, now all is well.
I was trying to do the logo thing, and I think only you can do the logo thing. Is that right?
Morning sunshine.
No, you could do it.
Yeah, but you're gonna need a driver, aren't you, till about 7 this evening?
No, I'm okay. It's not that. Sometimes in life, you wake up to your alarm, you say 5 more minutes, and 5 more minutes ends up being 2 hours. So that's going to happen in life. I try to do the Chris Schmidt schedule on Thursday and Friday with morning radio and afternoon radio. Morning radio on Saturday. And then you think you can wake up on time on Sunday, and you can't. Yeah, you hit the wall.
You're not ready for the big time. You're not ready for the big time.
Did you make her breakfast?
No.
Whoa.
I made coffee. I'm at home. These are all allegations. You would not believe how many unread texts I have right now saying, Elijah's ditching the Average Joe Sports Show. Don't tell me you're having computer troubles. Where are you at?
Who's that text from?
Everybody.
Oh,
there's a text from my father. There's a text from, we got BJ. We got Jacob. So many people. But I'm here now, and I'm ready to rock and roll.
I love it. And I had to reach out to shout out Will Wilson. We love you. Tavern on the Square.
Oh, I'm well aware. That's how my roommates were like, hey, are you going to wake up for the Average Joe Sports Show? And now I'm here. So thanks, Will. Will's who eventually got me here. So thank you, Will.
I appreciate it.
What's the best story from last night?
There's nothing good.
He doesn't
There's
remember.
nothing good. It wasn't that bad. I didn't have a insane.
Were you out and about, or were you just playing poker?
Was it a home game or was it a neutral site game?
Yeah.
No, poker was Friday night. Last night I was out and about, but nothing egregious.
O Street, Rail Yard, or Havelock.
A little bit of Havelock. But
Oh, good
again,
work.
Nothing egregious, but sometimes in life you're just going to oversleep, and I'm here now. What have I missed?
Take a nap because Nebraska basketball plays at 8 tonight against Murray State. Big game on ESPN. Thank you.
We talked playoffs and a little bit of inventory with the portal. And I don't know, just kind of feeling things out. Elijah is required to shave the mustache. Steven, that'd be a little over the top, I think.
Yeah. The Big Red Junkie say no one wants to see that.
No.
Yeah. He would look naked. Andrew's in this morning. Justin's in. Justin Old Boot checks in as well. Mike and Callie says we're like 3 proud dads. I love it. That's pretty good.
Doesn't mean you're not grounded, but yeah.
We're
for
three
you to
proud dads living vicariously through Elijah.
For you to sweep in, dude, it 20 minutes into this thing, we're just all very happy that you're safe and sound. That's what I'm happy about.
I'm glad I made it in eventually. I wish the college football games were better yesterday. I assume you guys have talked about that. But not an indictment on the 12-team playoff, not an indictment on college football as a whole. I said it yesterday. I was expecting more blowouts. We got some more blowouts. So not necessarily a surprise what we saw in college football yesterday. That's how the first round of playoffs are going to go. There's going to be blowouts in the NFL playoffs as well. It's just football, especially with you playing at other teams' stadiums where they were all, very, very loud. Teams struggled with that, SMU especially. So
let me ask you this. Don't you think Alabama would have been better pick?
Oh, my God.
We're going there. We're going
They
there.
lost 3 games, Bill.
I understand. No, I'm just saying.
I said it about Indiana. And I like the Big Ten representation, but there's the real complaint needed to go around in Indiana via Alabama. Eye test tells you what? Alabama, they didn't show up 3 times. Right?
The reason why I'm going, yeah, you're right. I agree with that. But it's the strength of schedule, which I think is played out. And SMU looked like
they had a chance early to get some confidence, and they botched it.
They were not ready for that stage.
No,
I hope Boise State is, but I'm afraid this is why I say it's got to be the 12 best teams and not welfare recipients of a ribbon and then getting a high seed. But Alabama would have been better against Penn State than SMU. And Indiana, great story all season long. And I know they would have burned down Lucas Oil Stadium if they had not been allowed in, because they had such a great record. But strength of schedule in football, probably more than any other. With if you compare it to the NCAA basketball tournament, everybody gets in. I get that, so it's all nice and it's fun because nobody cares about college basketball until March. But okay, I've been watching Fairleigh Dickinson all season long. I knew they'd knock off Purdue.
Wow.
But
they were up at halftime against Minnesota yesterday.
College football, you got to pick out the 12 or 16 best teams. No welfare recipients. Alabama would have been better than Indiana or SMU in this thing. And I fear the same could be said now against Arizona State and Boise State. You don't have the best teams in the country in the playoff. And I know they lost 3 times, but they played a lot tougher schedule than Indiana or anything SMU or Arizona State faced.
Here's what I'm intrigued by Arizona State. They've gotten hot. All right. Dillingham's all about it. He gets them motivated, and they've been pretty fun, to be quite frank, to watch offensively. And the Big 12 is kind of a basketball on grass conference. I enjoy it, but when push comes to shove, how do they stack up to the big boys? And we'll find out. But the fact them and Boise have had their feet up, it's kind of funny. It just isn't right. They needed to reseed this thing, but when they're putting this deal together, don't kid yourself, to get it done, to get a playoff, to get a 12 team going, they had to make some concessions. And part of those concessions was, all right, we're going to value your conference championship, and we're going to give buys to the top 4 ranked conference champions just to get the deal done with the ACCs and the Big 12s in this thing. That's what you're living with this first year. Hopefully you set fire to the contract, a la bad NIL investment after year 1, and go fix it.
Why should a conference championship be valued and
because you want to keep
factored in?
conference title games, because that's a paycheck and that's viewership, and because
Right, but again, a conference championship should be
should
a
enhance
trophy
your
all to its
resume.
own.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think a conference championship necessarily. This goes back to the NCAA basketball tournament thing. You get hot for a week and you get an automatic bid into the NCAA tournament, even though you may have gone 19 or 20-0 during the regular. You go 20-0, but if you lose on a week when somebody got on a bender, and then you get the bid because you had a good regular season when you've been the dominant team, but somebody who was under 500 sneaks through. Like Syracuse did 20 years ago. Remember that when they won like 5 straight days in Madison Square Garden and stole the Big East title because nobody else cared about winning the conference tournament, because they'd already played well in the regular season. They were going to the big dance. But I don't see why you've won a conference championship, that all of a sudden makes you worthy of a higher seed in this football playoff when you may not be one of the even best 12 teams or 16 teams in the country. Boise State should not have gotten a first round bye based on the overall performance, strength of schedule, all of that. But they got it because they won a conference championship. And I love the Mountain West, but it just should not happen that way. Just because you won a conference championship should not be a golden ticket into a bye and a better seed.
Yeah, I think that'll be changed, where they'll just seed 1 through 12, which will change this. I think we got to be careful of not taking away from the importance of the regular season, that you play 12 or 13 games and how you navigate it, because we knock teams for losing to 2 6-6 teams, but we should reward teams that have a good regular season. I mean, 11 wins is 11 wins. Indiana got beat by a better team. SMU got beat by a better team. That's what happens. It's called competition. But we can't say, 11 wins. I think we have to. The people that are in charge here, and I think with the men's basketball tournament, you can make mistakes in who you invite because you have 68 teams. 12, it's a lot different. But I think what they'll also have to adjust is, when do they release the rankings? Like, what they really should have done is the next to last ranking is when SMU and Indiana should have been impacted on where they're ranked, instead of at the last minute where they're ranked.
Fair.
So we are learning as we go. I'm glad we have the playoff. There's never going to be 12 teams that are going to be worthy of winning a national championship. There's probably at the most are going to be 5 to 6. So you're going to have the blowouts. I just hope that the people that are in charge of this sport and this playoff are willing to adjust by things year after year until we get it right, instead of going, nope, this is what we're deciding to do. Because I keep going back to, I'm looking at my FanDuel account right now. I can't believe that Penn State and Texas lost in their conference championship game, and they will play a game to go to the national semifinals as a double-figure favorite. I mean, they're playing a team that's on a bye that's at a neutral site. Arizona State and Boise State. But yet the other 2 games are like, wow, I could envision that being the national championship. We made a mistake there.
The path is so upside down, isn't it? It's crazy. The matchups were fun. The Indiana Notre Dame buzz, the scenes of folks storming into South Bend with the snow in the backdrop. I mean, there was some cool feels yesterday with the playoffs, and of course Friday night. You have Ole Miss and Coach Kiffin that's been, absent this morning on Twitter, but was very vocal. The Lane Train about not being in. Bama's kind of kept their head down, but they're good enough to win it, or at least play for it. The U escaped all season long garbage defense by just outscoring folks. and they've got a conversation. And you know what, SMU's not awful. They're talented, and Lashley's
environment and cold affected them more than any of the other
big
teams.
time.
I thought.
Absolutely, big time. But I think the lasting thing from all this playoff experience is the home field part's awesome, right? I mean, that's such a reward. It's so cool to be able to get a home field spot for a team. And you're just going to have to make tweaks so you have better opening round games, and you have the seedings right versus the conference. That's the biggest complaint for folks.
Okay, the games yesterday weren't great, but I think it's something we should have expected. You look at the FCS playoffs. I'm not mad. I'm just, I mean, you watch and you say, this thing's going sideways, and then you kind of keep your eyes on Clemson as they keep punching back and made it a 7-point ball game, which was good. But it was funny though. Doleman and I sit down for a little Italian dinner. We went out with the gals, and Doleman's sitting there like this in the booth. And I'm sitting across from him in the booth. We got the phone going, so we're watching the playoff. We had to go to a spot that didn't have a freaking TV. Doleman's kind of just going like that, going camo as we watch.
Look like my students cheating on a test.
Hey, did you guys not think as you were watching like South Bend or State College or Austin to a lesser extent, or even Columbus last night, that what it would be like if Nebraska, and they've got to be in the playoff in the next 10 years, or what are we doing here? I've given Nebraska a long runway there.
Yeah.
That what it would be like at Memorial Stadium to host a playoff game.
Oh man.
Oh, nuts.
I mean,
pretend it's Miami gets to come north for the first time, right? I mean, that'd be
payback for the 80s and the 90s.
Uh-huh. Yep. Come freeze your ass off.
Troy Dannon, whatever, every church usher in town passing the thing along, getting money. You just put it in there, and we'll build you a new stadium. Get out those wallets. Nebraska hosts one in December against a team from like Miami. They could build a new stadium on the spot.
Miami comes to town December 20th.
Oh, it's just
your Christmas wish has come true over the past 40 years.
I mean, that would be unbelievable. Just the excitement around it. And all I can think about also is if I'm an Oregon fan and I sit down to see who I'm going to be playing next, and I'm looking, man, that's a great atmosphere. I don't care if it's cold. We're used to the cold in Eugene, but yet we got to go play where the weather is going to be nice on a neutral site against Ohio State. We don't get a home game, but yet we were the number 1 seed. I don't know. I think the bowls are too big and there's too much money that they won't allow unless they expand a second round of home games. But if I'm a number 1 seed, they should make it. You should reward the number 1 seed. If you're going to give them the number 1 seed, reward them. We see it in the basketball tournament, that 16 team you're playing, unless you're upset prone, is not very good. That 8-9 is probably the worst 8-9. In football, we've got to do this. And if that includes having the second round be home games as well, fantastic. Can you imagine James Franklin having to go play on the Smurf turf?
That'll be all right. But the setting is going to be phenomenal next weekend, though, with the Rose Bowl and Ohio State and Oregon. I mean, it is going to be picturesque, and it's a Pac-12 Big Ten. Hey, thanks for the memories, right? Now that you've moved into the Big Ten neighborhood and won the league, and with the skill talent for both those teams, how about you just scream, take the over and sit back and enjoy? Defense optional next Saturday.
Would the traditional New Year's Six bowls though feel more important if they weren't a part of the playoff? I think that's something else that has to be considered moving forward. Like, as I look at bowl season, would I be more likely to watch Iowa take on Missouri if that was in the Rose Bowl or in the Sugar Bowl as compared to the Gator Bowl? Yeah, probably. That's the reality of some of these venues, especially you look at the Rose Bowl, but the Sugar Bowl too, the traditional New Year's Six bowls. I wonder if you move those back to the grander college football and leave that out of the playoff, because there's a lot of bowl matchups this winter that I would rather watch if they were in a game that had a little bit of history to it, a little bit of story to it. So I wonder, you know what? Quarterfinals will also be at home sites. We're going to reduce these special venues for the college football playoff. We'll put the national championship game in the Rose Bowl. I don't know. I also wonder if that's going to be something moving forward where, you know what, if you're a college football semifinalist and you win your game, why do you need to be the Rose Bowl champion? You're the Rose Bowl champion, but you didn't win the national championship. I think eventually we're going to move to a system where the traditional New Year's Six bowls, the games with history, are not a part of the playoff anymore. And I would really appreciate that.
I agree. Yeah, it was awkward to see him handing out roses last night to Ohio State players. Hey, welcome to the Rose Bowl. Yeah, I'm lockstep with the Elijah. I hope that becomes the thing. What do you guys think now moving forward? Because quietly, the bowl season's been kind of fun. I mean, if you've watched, they've gotten weird matchups. You have teams that both wearing their home jerseys. You got trick plays. You got exciting games. You never know who's playing for who or even is coaching. But now that we've had a weekend of playoffs, now we're about to go through a week of bowl games, and there's some pretty good matchups over the next week. That will they get much run, or will all of these bowl games, the people that are doing the games will talk more about the playoff than the game they're actually broadcasting? Like ABC this upcoming Saturday, 11 a.m. Fans from Nebraska are tuning in to watch Nebraska Boston College. It's on ABC, so it's on the mothership network. Are they going to spend more time talking about the playoff, which is coming up, the quarterfinals in the next couple of days, or the game that they're actually broadcasting?
Well, it depends on how bad the game they're doing gets. They got to shift to fill time if it's a, Tennessee, Ohio State situation. But they'll mix in their fair amount of promotion for sure. But I think their intent should be to focus on the matchup that's in front of you. These got to wait a while now. I mean, it's not quite on to, the turnaround time is New Year's Eve is when you get Boise and Penn State. New Year's Day is when you get the playoff games, and sprinkling in some of these, better luck next year on your playoff push. But the matchups are good. I mean, you got Michigan, Bama. I know that's in the Citrus. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool. You've got
I like Miami, Iowa State, and the Pop-Tarts, especially
that's fun. Yeah.
Pop-Tarts.
Hey, there's one thing here in Big Red Junkies. Let me scroll back up here. Made a really good point. For the Nebraska Boston College game, nobody has opted out yet to get ready for the NFL draft. Now they've opted out to go into the portal, of course. Mm-hmm. But no one has, like if you look around the country, the duo from Colorado's playing. Cam Ward is playing. We have seen less of those opt-outs this year. Do you guys wonder why? And I can't find the tweet. Oh, here is Big Red Junkies, the Nebraska Football Podcast. Shout out, good podcast, good dudes. These games are still infinitely better with all the players playing in them than they would be with a team playing in meaningless bowl games with half the team is opting out. They're absolutely right on that. But it's like weren't you guys maybe thinking, oh, we're going to get a late Ty Robinson is going to opt out, or the Boston College defensive end who leads the nation in sacks, he's going to opt out. Now I thought Ty, because of this reason, usually the field at Yankee Stadium is the worst field of all the bowl games. And so some agent says, don't risk the injury. But he's one guy that we know, as you heard him the other day, is like, hell no, I am playing. I only got one more game to go. I got one more game to wear this uniform. But I like that there's not a lot of opt-outs around the country for the NFL draft. There's more opt-outs for the portal.
I think you have guys that want to see it to the finish line in Nebraska's case, for sure. I think you also have, I would not be surprised that, hey, you're part of the attraction. So if I'm NIL people, I'm taking care of Ty Robinson and the Polar Bear to play in this thing. So there's no second or third thoughts about checking out. Here's some extra, here's some extra dollars for you to play in it. I mean, that's one route you could take. And if I'm Ezaraku from Boston College, and I look at Nebraska's offensive tackles, hell, I could have 20 sacks by the time I go to the NFL draft if I'm going into this thing at 16. And it legit. Barnett was the dude that absolutely lit his draft stock on fire from Tennessee.
Oh man,
in the Music City Bowl against Nebraska.
He put Nick Gates in a dark spot.
He did. He did.
Yeah.
And if I'm Ezaraku, I'm just going to kind of try and find the weak link and go off. Hell yeah, you play in it. If it's a different opponent, potentially you'd move on and say, hey, thanks, Coach Bill O'Brien, I'm out. No, I mean, Nebraska's, and listen, that's not a shot at Gatula. I think he's played well, and I think Ben Hart's gotten better as he's kept on trucking, but you've seen moments of, oh no, where their strip sack happens or there's pressure off the edge. So two different stories, but there's my reasoning for why I keep on going.
Your thoughts, Gary?
Gunnar Gatula. Go. Is he your starting tackle next year?
Should be.
I mean, it's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity for some of those guys. But I think it's been healthy for college football that there have not been a lot of the opt-outs because so much of the attention is on the transfer portal. And I know Nebraska's getting a guy from Georgia, but I kind of hate that. I mean, the guy should be playing with his team, for his team, throughout his team's season. But it's my understanding he's not, right? He's not going to play for Georgia anymore.
No, he's not going to play for Georgia, and Nebraska's picking up a linebacker from Oklahoma here within the hour.
Right, and nice. But I mean, I hate the fact that those guys aren't finishing out their seasons.
I don't think they were going to play much anyway.
I know, but still, but still, and Nebraska's got guys too.
Hey, can I pour some fuel on Bill's rant here? The backup quarterback for SMU. Before everybody was off the field yesterday at State College, Preston Stone announced that he was transferring to Northwestern. He was dressed in the game as the backup quarterback to Jennings.
He got benched earlier, didn't he? Stone was the starter.
Yep.
I'll say when the starter throws 3 first-half interceptions, 2 of them pick sixes, and you don't get on the field, I'd probably leave too.
Well, didn't Penn State?
Fact you got replaced by the guy? All right. I mean, you had a chance to keep the job.
Hey, you know what would be kind of interesting? Because South Dakota State and South Dakota's season is over because Montana State and North Dakota State are going to play in the championship game. Should be a great game. Is what does the portal look like from Brookings and Vermilion? Because we have seen if you can play ball, you can play at a lot of places. Physically, maybe you have to adjust your body, but does Nebraska dip into the FCS world? They're not afraid to go to the Group of 5 world. Do we see some involvement now that the FCS season is coming to an end? And then as we see, playoff teams that are out like SMU, Tennessee, Clemson, Indiana, will there be more activity in the portal?
You bet. I would love to go shopping for South Dakota State, South Dakota, North Dakota State. Get me those lines of scrimmage guys, even some of Northern Iowa's folks. I thought they were impressive, and they've got a strong history of finding dudes, developing in them, and then putting them on the field Sundays. They just do. And it hurts those schools, but it's all a trickle down. So why not?
Well, I think it's also like, I know those programs pretty well. It's an identity. Like it has been an identity over multiple coaching staffs that they're going to run the ball and be physical. So it's all about a mentality that as an offensive lineman, how you prepare. So that's why I would look at those schools for an older offensive lineman that has played a lot of snaps, that maybe has 1 year left, that is interested in moving up, because they played in a system where they win, and they played in a system where you got to be tough to get on the field. You got to have some grit. And I don't know, I look that way. I'm just curious, like watching Nebraska's movement in the portal, like what we know that Dana's priority is wide receivers, and they've had a host of offensive linemen roll through, but they really haven't been able to pluck anybody. And I'm wondering if, what Dana looks at a priority is, and the recruit looks at Nebraska. If he's like, oh man, I see myself in Dana's offense. Does an offensive lineman, can they go, oh, I see myself in this offense? Why would an offensive lineman pick Nebraska is kind of what I'm asking, out of the portal with like 1 or 2 years to play.
Well, the other thing with that though is how many of those guys have given an indication at this point that they're interested in going into the portal. They've been in the playoffs for 2-3 weeks. They probably utilize the playoffs to maybe enhance and get an idea of what they might be able to make and who they might be able to attract. So I'm sure there's some agency out there, some clearinghouse saying Nebraska would be a good spot for you and your style of play and your culture if you're playing at South Dakota State or North Dakota State. In all likelihood, you're not going to have one of those guys leave North Dakota State and go to UCLA or go to Miami. They may, but I think more and more with those guys at the FCS level, it's also a cultural fit. And if you've grown up in South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, something like that, and you've got an opportunity to go to what are this FBS college football playoff level team, it's probably going to be regional. But do they know? Have they known that you are interested at this point throughout the whole transfer portal season that you are interested in making that move? Or is that now being determined today, 24 hours after your season has come to an end? Right. In all likelihood, if your team has gotten into the FCS playoffs and gone through to the first, second, third round, you're probably a pretty good player on a pretty good team. Those that never made the playoffs, that were 6-6 in the FCS and the Big Sky, they're probably not getting looked at. The ones who are getting looked at are on the best teams in the top 16 of that respective division. So I think you're looking regionally. I think you're looking at successful teams, but it also has to be a quick courtship because I think they've been focused on the playoffs. And now those guys are weighing their decisions as to if they want to go and where they could go. Mm-hmm. And Nebraska would be a good fit for those in the South Dakota, North Dakota region.
Go get them. And maybe you can make good on missing them the first time around. Maybe they were under recruited. Maybe they didn't have the height or the speed out of high school. Maybe you just messed up your evaluation, or they were on that fringe part where you wanted them to walk on when once upon a time when you had walk on. So no,
what I hope Nebraska is not doing, or any other school, I hope they're not enticing them and have not been enticing them through the playoff run. That they're not putting the bait out there and trying to lure them in when they have not declared for the portal. They have not given their intentions, made their intentions known.
Don't enhance the tampering.
Right. No tampering, right?
No.
There was a story.
What's up, dude?
Well, when Arizona State was playing in its championship game, conference championship game a couple of weeks ago, the announcers were talking about Cam Scadaboo and how, he played at Sacramento State. And when Dillingham got the job at Arizona State, he was going to hire the Idaho coach or Idaho State coach to come down and coach with him because he had been, I believe, his high school coach. So there's this relationship there. And when Scadaboo at Sac State in the Big Sky plays against Idaho, makes an impression on the guy. Well, when he gets hired at Arizona State, he says to Dillingham, we got to get this guy. Now, I do not know, if Scadaboo had made his intentions known that he was going to transfer from Sacramento State, or if this was a deal where, hey, I saw you play against us. I'm going to Arizona State. You should leave Sac State to come play with us at Arizona State. Again, I don't know what the timeline was on that, but the story relayed was that there's a game between Sac State and Idaho, or Idaho State, makes an impression on that guy. He gets hired by Arizona State, and Scatterboo ends up there. To me, that was like, wait a minute here. You played against him, and now he's with you. That didn't sit well with me, and I hope that's not what's happening, especially to teams at that level.
I would be disappointed if Nebraska's not tampering. I think Nebraska would be handcuffing themselves if they're not doing the same thing everybody else is doing. Until this is regulated, yeah, you should be tampering. You should be putting the bait out there. You should have your handlers talking to agents to see if somebody's interested. I mean, it's happening to your roster.
Yeah, you're getting.
I mean, as long as there is no guardrails and this is just the wild, wild west, if you're not doing that, then you're only hurting yourselves because people are doing that to your roster.
I 100% agree with you. If everybody else is, you better be playing this dirty game right with everybody else. But I just wish it wasn't happening, especially to schools at the FCS level who are just trying to win a national championship. And maybe guys really are the highest paid players at FCS are getting jerky and burritos, right? That's what the biggest happy meal that you're getting under the table has burritos and jerky in it, right? But I know, I'm not naive to think that the game's not being played that way. And I do hope if that's the way it is, that everybody's all in and maybe someday there will be some guardrails. So I do agree with you. I just wish it wasn't happening.
Yeah. I mean, I think so, like 2 examples. I think Nebraska tampered with Winery, and they had a connection, but he went into the portal with a no contact. So before he made his intentions known publicly, he had already chosen Nebraska. Dowdell got a feeler, and then he jumped on it, and he hadn't gone into the portal yet.
Yeah, I heard that too. That didn't sit well. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Well, I mean, we've kind of discussed this, guys. Nebraska's roster, when you're 6-6, and you're at a place like Nebraska's roster is vulnerable. There are going to be agents that are just going to kick the tires. And then it's on the player who then with their agent or their family member goes, yeah, okay, let's see what's out there. I mean, we're going to have to get used to that for a while around here until Nebraska starts winning. But I just hope that Nebraska is doing the same thing. I know Rule continually talks about how this isn't good, and every coach does. But I don't care if he's two-faced on this. I want them tampering. They've got to put together the best roster possible. And if they have connections and someone's interested, let's continue that discussion because behind your back, it's happening to your program. I mean, it's not, Bill, I'm with you. It's not good for the sport, but as long as it's still viable and you're not getting dinged for it, man, you got to do everything possible to put the best roster available, whether it be cash because you can now, or you know what? Hey, this guy's a good player. He might not be happy. You guys might want to talk to him. And they're like, but he's not officially in. No, you guys might want to talk to him.
Let's remind him he's not
happy. His DM's open.
Yeah. I know the Dowdell thing wasn't eye-opening. It was just confirmation of what's going on, right?
Well,
I'm staying. And wait, what? All right, I'm gone.
and it sucks that you have to recruit your own roster. I mean, we are at a point where, like Riley Van Poppel had to say that he was coming back. Ja'Cory Barney had to say that he was coming back. I'm convinced there was interest in Dylan. Dylan's got enough people around him that schools are like, man, we could use a Dylan Raiola. Maybe he's not happy at Nebraska after 1 year. Let's reach out and let's see if somebody would like start the conversation. But you have to have guys that post, yes, I'm coming back. That would get me out of college coaching quicker than anything. Is that I'm out there trying to build my roster for the future, but yet I almost have to recruit on campus harder than I do when I'm in Kansas City. That's wild.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that can't happen. That doesn't happen in the pros.
No, because it's collectively bargained.
Yeah.
How long's the shelf life as a head football coach feeling that you've been able to successfully retain and recruit your roster? Is it an hour-by-hour thing? Is it a week? I mean, don't kid yourself. Nebraska right now on the portal front and in their living rooms for the high school players, they're still selling hope. You've had a little bit of progress to get to 6-6, but when you lose a guy like World, the offensive tackle, you lost him because of results. You were the big dog financially, and he wants to go win with his last year. Oregon's in the semis. They've had a bye. So right now, Nebraska's got to shift from that hope to results. It's got to be results based on the field, where you have a couple of signature wins. You're at that 8-9 win window in year 3, and you can see things moving in the right direction. Otherwise, we're going to have some very tough conversations possibly a year from now when we talk about poaching and portal and whether they've got some guardrails up or not. You've got a few guys here that are going to give Nebraska a year or two to be a part of, flipping it to a winning culture, a winning program. But if it's still stuck in the mud, you're going to be out of luck, I believe, keeping some of these guys a second year.
And do you start, with the 4-game budget for redshirting? Is that out the window now?
Yeah, I think you're done.
You can't redshirt dudes. And if they go out and suck and fail because they're not ready,
unless they're an offensive lineman. Fair. But I think any other position on the field, even defensive line, because not every guy is ready to play in the trenches on that side of the ball in the Big Ten. I think the sooner guys get on the field, the better.
What you can't do is play guys to say you played them so they stick around. You can't put that side of the football in dire straits because you're throwing an 18-year-old that's not spent the time in the weight room and ask him to go set the edge. Guess what's going to happen? They're going to run at him and keep running at him.
Yeah,
at him.
Do you guys think, like, for example, Keona Davis benefited more from playing 11 games compared to 4, and then that's it?
I think he got into a rhythm. I think with the different opponents, I think he saw what he needed to be, and he wasn't overmatched. Physically, he was ready. The mental part's always the biggest problem, and he looked like he knew what to do with his job, and he was able to play pretty fast. So I'm all for playing him because it was very real. You were going to lose him this year, right? And you're able to get him retained. So keep him engaged, man. They did the right thing by playing him. They probably thought he was ready, to be honest.
McGahee's in the same boat. I mean, Gahey played more and more as the season went along.
He did a hell of a job,
right? But you don't want to play guys 4 games, develop them, and give 4 years of eligibility someplace else.
Well, that's Elijah has brought this up before, either during the week on the Average Joe or on Hail Varsity or on our podcast. Is if you're going to say you're a development program and you're going to develop players, are you developing them for yourself or for somebody else?
Yeah.
Better be for you.
Well, and I mean that's like we got that was the Keona Davis thing, wasn't it, guys? Like Nebraska was developing him for Nebraska, but yet he could have been developed for somebody else. I mean, that like James Williams. Let's use James Williams as an example. I'm curious on all 3 of you. Nebraska's not getting Peyton. He committed to LSU yesterday. So we don't have the trading between Nebraska and Florida State is not it's kind of taking a little stoppage. James Williams, is James Williams a finished product, or will we look at James Williams at Florida State and go, damn, that's what I thought he could be?
I think James Williams has more ceiling to reach. I think to reach that ceiling, he's going to have to grow up a little bit more, and that's, we're all immature at that age. I think if he listens to pot roast, I think he can be an every down guy. Right now, he's a specialty 3rd down pass rush artist who's really good.
That's what I see him as.
I also think he'll have the ability to play better in the ACC where you're not going up against, and that's, I'm painting with a broad brush here, but I think kind of the playoff may have emphasized that what we saw the past.
There's no days. Michigans and Minnesotas in the ACC.
Yeah,
great point.
Yeah, he might be able to be more of an every down guy in the ACC compared to what he was in the Big Ten.
I think in the Big Ten he needed to get bigger.
Mhm.
And if he got bigger, how much would that affect his speed off the edge to get to the quarterback? And that's why I think he's a third down trick. And he's a good one. But if he had to put more size on to go against bigger tackles, is that going to slow him down? I'm not sure he's an interior player. His mode is go from A to B, and that means go hit the quarterback. So yeah, ACC is probably better suited for him in that regard, and he might put himself in position to get drafted. But when he goes against bigger, more experienced players, as you would meet in the NFL, he might get lost in the shuffle.
Right now, if he's on the field and it's 2nd and 5, they are running right at him in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean so if we're doing the straight up trades, so to speak,
I think Nebraska's upgraded. I think Nebraska's upgraded with who they brought in. Absolutely.
I agree, because I think Neri could be a 3-down pass rusher.
He's like a Thibodeau.
And James Williams is just a 3rd-down guy. Yes. So I think in that area they upgraded. And I like James Williams, but I wanted him to see if he could get on the field to play 1st and 2nd down. But the points you guys made about playing that position in the Big Ten is a little bit different compared to the ACC, where I think actually Tony White's 3-3-5 will be a lot better because of the type of athlete they can use in that league. But yeah, I think in the pass rush, I think Neri is an upgrade, because I think Neri, if they get him right, he can be on the field for all 3 downs, kind of like a Randy Gregory. Randy Gregory wasn't great against the run, but when he had to make a stop, he did. And then, of course, when he had to go get the quarterback, he did.
He was good enough.
Up until his 2nd year at Nebraska.
Fellas, Merry Christmas. We have, is it Desan McCullough?
From Oklahoma.
From Oklahoma. Steve Wildfong on Twitter. He's a safety. It looks like it's kind of a hybrid safety.
He's like a Javen Wright.
Yeah, yep. Hybrid safety.
The best way it was described to me yesterday.
Okay. Well, good. Keep that going. That predictor is out. So Wildfong and Nakos and Gary Sharp are all over this with McCullough. So more portal additions. We have not huddled up on when the next Average Joe Sports Show is going to happen. I doubt that it's going to be Wednesday. Although we may be clamoring for one another if we're out on the family time.
Hey,
I gotta go.
So don't we have to give a prediction on the Pinstripe Bowl? Are we still interested in the Pinstripe Bowl?
Oh,
Can I go to Husker Hounds and get my 50% off T-shirt?
Who's playing?
Give me God, I hope
East talked about Nebraska bowl game of all time.
Ooh, that's a great question.
That includes the 1980 Sun Bowl against Mississippi State or something.
God, Bill, you might have been on the trip with us. The Shreveport, the Independence Bowl when Nebraska played Ole Miss with Eli at quarterback.
So too, yeah.
That was an awful trip because Nebraska, for some stupid reason, and I went down with them. We went down 7 days before the game began, and we stayed in a casino hotel where they told you don't go down the street because that's the worst part of Shreveport. So they said you have to stay in the casino. I watched Dan Young and Milt Tenenper make a lot of money playing cards, but the weather wasn't great. That would have been one of the least talked about ones, but that was the transition from Byrne to Peterson off of that year.
Yeah.
Off of that really, really bad 2002. So people were paying attention to what was going on.
Yeah. 1976 Astro Blue Bonnet Bowl against Texas Tech was somewhat of a foregone playing a game on New Year's Eve.
Was that in Memphis?
No, that was in the Astrodome in Houston.
Okay.
The Memphis one was concrete.
Okay. The Memphis one, was that 77?
The Liberty Bowl?
Yeah.
Was that against Florida, I think? That was like the Terry Luck Bowl, I believe, or Randy Garcia, one of those guys had the career game.
Hey, do you know something, a little oddity? Do you know 2 of the last 3 Nebraska bowl games they've worn all white?
Yeah.
So in the Holiday Bowl, when they made the transition from Bo to Riley, they wore white. Foster Farms, they wore red on white. when they were at the Music City Bowl, they wore all white. You know, Mike Riley loved the all whites. Is Nebraska the home or the visiting team in this game?
No clue.
I have no idea.
Usually that's like a big deal because you're like, man, I wonder what they're going to wear. God, you're right. This is like the least talked about. And maybe the emerging storyline is that Nebraska is staying at the hotel where the guy from the United Healthcare CEO was shot in front of.
Well, it's funny how this is
the band is, and half the band is going,
which is ridiculous. But it's funny how this was the most talked about Husker bowl game up until the point where they became bowl eligible and got their bowl game, and now nobody cares.
No, it's where they've been exiled to. If it was Nashville, rather this people be jacked because you're gonna have fun. You're gonna go get your party on. It's a good opponent. BC, I love their coach. I think they got some talent, but it's an afterthought matchup. So I'm gonna give my prediction. The other day, thank you much.
The other day, thank you.
Yeah, nice.
I'm going to say Nebraska 27, Boston College 21. I know it's a 2.5 point favorite, so it's a coin flip. I think Dana's offense is the difference, and it's going to be Nebraska's defense that's got to win it for him. But who the hell knows? Quite frankly, who the hell knows what's going to happen?
When is Nebraska leaving for New York City?
Tomorrow.
I think tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah. Kobe's right. Ohio State's uniforms looked now. See, I like Nebraska's all red in '86, and they've never worn them again. But I thought Ohio State's all red looked like those footy pajamas.
But man, I don't know. And like Notre Dame had like kind of special uniforms. I don't know. On that stage, I want you to wear. And I love Ohio State's uniforms, but you know, like nobody is on the level of Iowa State. Iowa State wears black all the time. Like the biggest games, Iowa State's wearing black. Yeah. It seems like, I don't know. They were okay, but I don't know. Like the biggest stage where a lot of people were watching. I like the traditional uniform.
I want to see the green. I want to see Notre Dame rock the green like they did in the Sugar Bowl 100 years ago, or they'll wear the emerald green at night when they would play USC from time to time. Give me the emerald green round 2 if I'm Notre Dame. I think those are cool.
Can you imagine what Oregon's uniform is going to be for the Rose Bowl?
They might go with the silver. Just to thumb their nose at Ohio State.
Boston College 24, Nebraska 20.
Okay.
Since it's at Yankee Stadium, I think Nebraska gets a go-ahead run in the bottom of the 7th. Holds on to win at 7-6. Okay. You get a baseball score in a baseball stadium. So there you go.
Elijah. Don't give a shit, do you?
You said it, not me. Nebraska 21, Boston College 17. But you said it.
Elijah's like, why did I wake up for this?
So what would get you to like be excited about Saturday at 11 a.m.?
The fact that we're 6 hours away from doing the last post-game show of the year.
If I had money on it,
that's
had
money on it.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep this thing trekking on, but Rickey Henderson died yesterday, man, and I'm sad about that because my brother and I got to ride up in the elevator with Rickey. And Rickey had on a dress shirt with these red parachute pants, 70 pounds of Mr. T gold around his neck. And, you know, it's just, we're kind of combing for autographs. This is like 1990 at the Adams Mark right across the interstate from his Royals. And it was Oakland playing the Royals. And mom and dad got us into the hotel, and we're getting autographs from the legendary Oakland squads. And so it's me and my brother that run into Rickey Henderson. And everyone talks about Rickey Henderson saying, well, Rickey's going third person. And he does. My 3 seconds of time with Rickey Henderson, it's like, well, Mr. Henderson, can we get an autograph? It's me and my little brother. And Rickey punches the elevator. Take me to floor 5, and It's like Rickey tired. Rickey tired. Rickey going to bed. And he drops us off at the main level floor and he heads up. So he shot us down on the autograph, but it was cool, man, to be in the elevator with Rickey Henderson as a 12-year-old, being told in Ricky's own way to go to hell. I'm not signing that for you, kid. But I am sad. I am sad because he's a young 65. His birthday's on December 25th, and that dude was just incredible. I remember I've watched him probably more than about any other player growing up. Either he'd be with the Yankees or the A's when we go down to Kansas City for vacation, and he was always batting leadoff. So it sucks that passes away with pneumonia at age 65. But God, he was fun. I thought he was playing like 5 years ago, and he wasn't. Yeah. But he was. He just kept playing. And Rickey Henderson always made me smile, especially when his peers talked about him.
He is a forever baseball personality.
Yeah,
forever baseball person. The guys, play, they come, they go, but that's a lasting legacy. And you're right. It doesn't seem like it was all that long ago. So when I saw 65, I'm thinking, wow. I didn't realize
I thought he was playing in the California Penal League or somewhere for, someone, independent ball would pick him up. He was in New Jersey playing probably like 10, 12 years ago. It's 20 years ago he last played. I think he was with the Dodgers. But he played for about every major league team, but he's either an A or a Yankee. Sharpie, did you ever bump into him?
Yeah, a few times.
Yeah.
He was a character, man.
He
played the game hard. He was the best that ever was in terms of stealing stolen bases. How many kids decided that we should dive headfirst into the base when you're stealing a base?
Yeah.
You know what? He was also a great teammate. Like, he was a really, really good teammate, and he loved the game of baseball, and he was a character. And that was shocking news when I heard that yesterday. But I'm glad that while he was alive, he got his due props, because he was about it. He had a stretch where he was about as good as could be. And the fact that he did what he did in stealing bases, and that no one has come close since, and no one will, is pretty dang amazing, because he beat the heck out of his body. But how many kids learned how to slide, either it's good or not, head first, but learned how to slide and play the game as hard as Rickey did? But man, he had some swag. He did, man. When there would be a fly ball to left field, and he would slap his glove and just rip down on it and make the catch. Man, he was fun to watch. We need more characters in the game of baseball, and characters in sports, period. And his celebrate them instead of knocking them for being, oh, you're a D-bag because you're so cocky. We need characters. We need characters on the sidelines. We need characters on our playing field.
And he was the best thing. I'd say the best thing I saw about Rickey, which kind of speaks to all that, is he was good for baseball because he would hit a bat flip. He would talk his shit on the field, and you couldn't go out there and plunk him and get your revenge, because within 3 pitches he'd be on third base. So you had to pitch him straight up.
No, I love the power from the leadoff. And that's what I remember about Rickey Henderson, other than the third person for sure, was just how big his legs were. Like, he's wearing parachute pants, not because he thinks they're cool, probably because he needs to let those thunder thighs, breathe a little bit. So, but I just had to go ahead.
The thing that really sucks is, like, if you're an A's fan, you have nowhere to grieve Rickey. Like, there's no stadium to go to drop off flowers, to get together with fellow fans. They shut off the comments on their website. Like, come on.
Wow.
I mean, but he was
two big time tours with Oakland. I mean, as a 20-year-old, the guy got drafted. He came out of Oakland Tech, and his teammates growing up. I mean, that was the high school on the West Coast. When you look at all the major leaguers that came out of there.
He was an extremely nice person. His persona was a little bit different away from the ballpark, but he did a lot of things that no one knew about to help people play the game, or teammates that were ailing physically. He was always there for him. And also, we should probably mention, keep as you move into the holidays, keep Greg Sharp, the voice of the Huskers, in your thoughts and prayers.
Absolutely.
Amen to that. Yep.
Well, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to all of you for checking us out. We thank you kindly. Like and subscribe the Average Joe Sports Show on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and find us on Twitter, the AJ Sports Pod. Bill Doleman, Gary Sharp, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Have a wonderful Christmas and time with family. We'll holler at you in the new year. Thanks for tuning in.